It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Amherst head track and field coach, Coach Hannah Chappell-Dick. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you were going to get started in coaching in college track and field?
Yeah, I guess honestly, I didn't necessarily have that in the plan when I was a college student. I had taken a USA track and field level one class because I wanted to coach kids. And part of my senior thesis was starting a track club for free for local kids in the neighborhood, which was an awesome experience, but it was kind of more from a public health lens. And so that got me started in coaching, but it was with 8-year-olds. So definitely a lot different than college track and field coaching. And I actually moved to Atlanta to compete post-collegiately and work in the nonprofit space after college and kind of found my way back into college coaching by accident a little bit and ended up, falling in love with it, not fully committing to it for a couple of years because I, wanted to make sure that I had a backup plan. College athletics is obviously a little bit of a volatile profession, but I ended up just absolutely loving it and realizing that there was nothing else that I could or wanted to do more than be a college coach.
What was that experience like for you going to college and competing in collegiate track and field?
Yeah, so I always knew that I wanted to continue running, after high school. And I didn't grow up in a family that was talked about sports or watch sports. It was definitely more of a little bit of an afterthought in the decision process. So, I took my college application process really seriously, but I really prioritized the academic side of things over the athletic side of things. It's funny because like my love of the sport only grew throughout college. So, like in hindsight, I wonder how much my recruiting process would have been different if I would have been taking athletics as a larger piece of that pie. But ultimately, I chose my school based on the culture there, financial considerations, and I had an awesome time. I loved competing at EMU. Eastern Mennonite is not a well-known school, so it was fun for me to feel like I could put it on the map a little bit within the Division III space. And there was a lot of funny moments when people would look at my uniform that said Eastern Mennonite and be like, "Are you Amish?" And I'd be like, "Okay, no, do you see what I'm wearing here? Like, we're not, it's a little bit different." And I could tell them a little bit about our background. And so it was really fun. I absolutely loved competing in Division III and, getting to have an impact at the national level and getting to be with teammates and help the team kind of reach a new level of success with my college coach who did an awesome job.
After your collegiate time, what was it like becoming a head coach at your alma mater?
Yeah, so I was 23 years old when I was selected as interim head coach at EMU. So to say that I was grossly underprepared is kind of an understatement. But a couple of the people on the team were actually older than me. We had a Fulbright scholar, um, international, who was I think about 25 at the time, and we had, maybe 5 guys on the men's team. I had to put up, we had we'd had a couple of coaches leave in between when I was a student athlete and when I came back to be the interim head coach. And so I was out there like literally on the sidewalk recruiting people for the team. But we had an awesome season. It was so much fun. I think I just tried to be really humble and coach with humility for these student athletes who had previously been my teammates and just try to like get some buy-in with them. Just be like, "Hey guys, I'm passionate about this. I love this. Just trust me for a couple months. Like I'm gonna do the best I can. I'm gonna make mistakes." But it ended up being awesome. We finished fourth at the conference meet, which is, a huge accomplishment for us at the time. And like it was a really, really excellent experience. And I knew that I didn't want to stay at my alma mater because I wanted to grow as a coach. I wanted to explore this a little bit more, which is why I ultimately left. But it was such an awesome experience, and I credit that experience for why I'm in this field now.
During that time, what was that feeling like becoming the head coach at your alma mater and being so young?
Yeah, well, I mean, my assistant was 22, so we were a 23 and a 22-year-old pair of women, just like kind of doing everything for the first time. Um, And, in hindsight, I like obviously had no idea what I was doing, but I cared a lot. I researched a lot. I've always been a student of the sport. And so I was really proud to represent my school. I was proud to serve them in a time when they needed, we had that gap in leadership before the current head coach came on. And like I feel really good about the way that I was able to bridge that gap between more longer term coaches. But, it was baptism by fire for sure. And I feel really lucky that that was my first experience because it was so hard that it kind of fortified me for the journey going forward.
What were some of the challenges you faced during that time, and how did you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenge is just being a young woman and not being used to being in a leadership role. And just being a people pleaser, wanting everyone to like me, wanting everyone to like think I'm doing a good job when it's impossible for you to ever please everybody at once. And like, my intentions were good. They were always good, but I don't know if I always like, executed everything I needed to do with excellence. And I'm not sure that I always like made the right choice, with how I approached different interpersonal problems on the team. But I really wanted to make sure that like everyone felt loved and accepted and like that I was bought into their progress. And so, I mean, I think the biggest thing was me just being like able to admit that I was going to make mistakes and say that I was sorry if I messed up. But it is a challenge, like learning how to use your voice and learning how to like um, be a female in a very male dominated space, especially when I had only ever had male coaches in my time as an athlete.
What was that time like getting to be a semi-pro athlete and getting to compete professionally?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd been in Division 3, like my school is super blue collar, I guess you could call it, when it comes to competing. So like you know, we didn't fly to fancy meets most of the time. We didn't have, anything flashy. We didn't have an indoor track or anything like that to train on. Um, so when I had the opportunity to run post-collegiately at Atlanta Track Club, I feel like my mind was opened in such a big way to elite running. Um, I had never really met a professional runner, let alone, train beside them. And it was awesome. Like it was so much fun. We had, coaches that poured into us. The track club supported us in such a big way. Like, I had no business getting supported in the way that I did. Like they gave me occasional physical therapy and massage. They gave me shoes. I did a lot of pacing in exchange for travel to like national level meets like Portland Track Festival, stuff like that. And it just opened my eyes to like what the next level of running really looks like. Ultimately, I did end up getting injured partway through my first year. I tore my labrum, which set off a cascade of events that eventually led me to this career path and like wasn't ultimately my retirement, but it was definitely when I had to shift towards realizing like, okay, I might have, tapped out how far I can make it as an athlete, but like it started to make me realize that I felt like I could make it really far in this sport as a coach and like and pouring into the next generation. And so I think that experience was so incredibly formative and making me realize like, okay, what this looks like at the next level. And honestly, it's pretty blue collar. So like people who come from Division 1 straight into pro running as we have in the US, it can be a bit of a shock. So I feel like I learned so much and I was given so much by my coaches and by the track club. And like I cannot imagine that I'd be where I am today without that experience.
What was that experience like for you going to the SEC and going to Florida Gators and getting to be a grad assistant there?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same thing. Like Florida was another huge eye-opening moment for me. Um, After I left EMU as the interim head coach, I moved back to Atlanta to continue training with Atlanta Track Club. I had some unfinished goals on the track, and during that time, I was also a volunteer coach at Georgia Tech. So it was awesome, but I was working to pay rent. I was kind of trying to run post collegiately and run some PRs, and then I was also volunteer coaching at Georgia Tech. So when I went to Florida, I was a grad student, so I did have to, I was in business school at the time, but it was the first time that I was doing coaching almost full time, as opposed to also trying to like have a job and run at a really high level. So I was really all in. Florida demands a lot of their staff, even their volunteers, and I took that really seriously. I do regret that that was right. COVID was right in the middle of that experience, so I feel like I didn't quite have that full 2 years, um, of experiences, but the times that I did have and the first semester and the last semester especially that were a little bit more normal was such a huge growing experience. And like the SEC is just like different than anything I'd ever seen before, different than pro running, different than Division III, of course, and even different than the ACC at Georgia Tech. So it really expanded my idea of like what college coaching looks like because of all the differences.
What was that experience like for you going to the Ivy League to Brown and first being an assistant coach before being the head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Brown, when I got my first full-time job at Brown, I felt like it was a little bit of a return to my roots because while it is Division III, I mean, sorry, it is Division I, it is a lot more similar to the Division III model compared to the SEC. And so I had a ton of fun, being able to be an assistant coach, learn how the Ivy League works, be surrounded by student athletes who are just the best and the brightest, like really exceptional, really funny, really kind, caring. Like I think I learned a lot about the high academic space and realized, you know, how how much fun it was to be surrounded by people who were just like so bright, so intellectually curious. Like that was awesome. Very early on when I got to Brown, a couple months in, they ended up letting go of the head coach, just, due to performance reasons. So I kind of found myself as the only distance coach of all the men and women. And again, I felt young, I felt underprepared, I felt I didn't have the confidence that I could step into that role, but I had to, and I decided to just do it and go, both feet um, first. And so it was such a great learning experience. They ended up hiring another coach, and we just sort of co-coached the distance before separating it into men and women. Um, and I feel like that was like a huge step forward for me too, and just like learning that you just got to get it done. Like if you find yourself in a position like that, you just have to kind of um, do the best you can with what you are given. And I felt that Brown was a very natural fit for me from a cultural perspective, and that gave me a lot of satisfaction and made it worth it to like do all the work of getting to know 50 new athletes, and then also say, hey, and I'm your only coach. I know you didn't, I didn't recruit you, you don't necessarily know anything about me, but like I'm going to pour into you, I'm going to do the best I can.
What was that experience like getting to compete against some of those teams like Yale, Princeton, and Harvard?
Yeah, I mean the Ivy League is incredibly competitive, especially for distance running. So it was like, I mean, it was hard. Like it was constant. You had student athletes run lifetime personal bests and then still not make finals. And it was hard. Like we had to recruit really, really hard. So we had to find the right kids who are academically qualified and bought into the culture of Brown. We didn't want just people who you know, didn't get an offer from Harvard. We wanted people who were excited about Brown and loved the open curriculum and like really wanted that. And it's kind of like finding a needle in a haystack, but we were able to find them. It just took a lot of work, a lot of home visits, a lot of recruiting. So that was really big. And then I guess the other part of that is that once we did start to make inroads against the other Ivy League schools, it became very, very satisfying. So, the first time that my group was able to score a point in the Ivy League, we were in the DMR indoors, and then we got DQ'd. Oh. We got DQ'd because of one of the women had cut off one of the Dartmouth women, and obviously we were all really disappointed because we were so excited that this was our first opportunity to score. Um, but we wanted to do it in the right way. So we were like, okay, we're coming back stronger. We're gonna fair and square. And then for the outdoor meet that year, we actually had a walk-on who had transferred in from a Division III school, score in the 10K. And that was such a huge accomplishment for the team. It was later at night, so the whole track team was watching on a little screen and like getting to see her place sixth after, just trying out for the team and barely making it the year before. So it was so exciting to see that development, and like the whole team was bought into that. And so it was really, really tough competition, but I think that made the little victories even sweeter. And I'm really excited to see that team, even though I'm not coaching them anymore, continuing to make steps and kind of, really competing with the best of the best now in cross country, like finishing middle of the pack at HEPS, which is no easy task in cross country. So.
For you, what was that transition like going from Brown to coming to Amherst?
Yeah, I mean, I also think that was a pretty natural transition for me because Amherst and Brown are very similar from a cultural standpoint and from an academic standpoint, a recruiting standpoint. Um, ultimately I decided to come to Amherst just because, I'm head men's and women's coach. I have a little bit more autonomy. It's a little bit more of like a distance focused program. And I saw the potential here. I mean, this program could be really, really good. And I'm not a very patient person, but it's going to require patience to get to the level that, I want us to get to. But the team is like, they're bought in. I think the thing that surprised me the most on my interview at Amherst was like the student athletes were just 100% like, I'm excited about this. I want to do this. We want to be good. We want to obviously have a well-rounded experience, but like they're passionate about it. And that's something that I always felt like I was passionate about this sport, but I also wanted to have other parts of me that I developed. And so that's why I felt like it was a really good match fit for me to come to Amherst. And honestly, like the transition's been really, really seamless for me. There's always challenges to a new team, but to my predecessor's credit, she created an awesome culture that was such a strong base, and we've been able to build really quickly. She was a great recruiter. She got a lot of buy-in from the student athletes. You know, there's not a lot of like toxic undercurrents. Like it's a great group of kids, and I feel like my job is to just kind of insert, a new perspective, remind them of what they're capable of, and then just kind of continue making incremental progress toward what I think they're capable of.
What does a typical track meet look like for you as head coach versus for your athletes?
I think the issue with, being the head coach of the men and the women is that you obviously can't be more than one place at one time. And so, one of my regrets or one of the things that I'm still learning as a relatively young coach in this profession is how to like, you know, time is a finite resource. How do I spread my time appropriately? How do I give enough attention to the folks who just finished the race versus the ones who are going to race? Um, and I'm realizing, and I'm so grateful that I have an assistant coach who's able to kind of support me in that and to support the student athletes most importantly, because, I'm realizing that I just can't do it by myself. So I'm trying to do everything I can to, help him grow and towards his goal of being a head coach one day, but also to give him some responsibility. Um, and so that the athletes can realize that like he is such a great resource. He has the experience that can help them as well. And like, um, I think that's the biggest thing is like learning to delegate some of the stuff that I used to always just want to do myself. But I think like the next step in my career is learning how to kind of um, be a coach of other coaches and help bring up our assistants so that they're able to operate independently. And I'm just so grateful that, my two assistants at Amherst in my past 2 years have been so excellent. And that makes my job so much easier. And I really, really appreciate them.
As a head coach, what is it like getting to oversee, let's see, the cross country side when working on the track side?
Yeah, so it being a head coach of cross country and then also being a track coach can be really complicated. It's definitely like your responsibilities kind of never end. Because you go right from cross country to indoor track to outdoor track to the summer, which is essentially recruiting season for us. Um, so I'm also really grateful. Our head track coach, who we have separated programs. So we have a head cross with different budget, different recruiting, and then we have head track with different budget, different recruiting, which is different from other programs. But he does such an excellent job of deloading some of my like logistical or administrative tasks in the spring so that I can focus on things like planning our home meets for cross country and like doing that travel. And we work together really well. So we're able to kind of separate those duties a little bit. And, that as we work together for longer, we kind of iron out those details as well. So that's been awesome. Like the fall is really hard. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's you're in season. You're a college coach. That's how it is. But in the spring, I'm able to kind of pour into the athletes and their specific needs for their specific events a little bit more because the track coach is able to handle some more of the logistics for travel, um, for track and field.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
Well, we have a big goal of winning a triple crown. So, we want to win the NESCAC cross country, the indoor New England, which is our championship since there is no NESCAC indoor, and then the outdoor NESCAC championship. And some of the teams that have beaten us over the past year are Williams in cross country, and then Tufts and Middlebury in track. So we finished second across the board. And then for New England, MIT as well. So those are the teams that we definitely like have our eyes on, and we're really, really excited for the challenge of you know, trying to beat them. We only lost by 8 points, which is a very, very close score for outdoor track last year, and we feel really confident in our ability to at least compete for a conference title in outdoor track this year. So that's really exciting to be part of a well-rounded team. But there's a lot of great teams in the NESCAC and in New England more generally. So, it's just it's fun. I have a ton of respect for those coaches. I talk to them really regularly, but we love to compete with each other and we love to see what we can do.
What is that home track atmosphere like when teams like Tough comes to your home facility?
Yeah, so we have a home track meet that is really fun. We actually had several teams come, including MIT, who has a really strong distance and middle distance group, and we had some like fun showdown competitions that really showcase some great athletes who are going to be eventual national qualifiers, but that are racing each other on the track. So that was kind of like a fun little preview of higher level competition. And we were really honored that the president of the school, the provost and dean of the faculty came out. Like it was really fun to have that. But then also we were able to show our personality a little bit in hosting. So like we had like a hot dog stand where the head track coach was grilling hot dogs by the throws, and then like trying to bring other people in to see the other events. Our throws cage is off site, so we were like pulling people into different areas, and then we ended up having a dog 100-meter race, which was hilarious. It was dog plus owner, but no one on the team, only family members. So that was a super big highlight of the home meet, and we're going to build that out and make like small and large dog divisions. So home meet's a lot of work, but it ends up being super worth it for the student athletes.
You talked about, of course, the culture that you started to help to build for the program.
Yeah, I mean, again, with our culture has been in the works with Coach Rubin, who's the track coach, Coach Funky Harris, who was my predecessor. Those two really got something started over the last few years. And I feel like I've been able to jump in and like continue to build. I think, we talk a lot about, everybody having a place on the team, everybody knowing their role and, rowing in the same direction. We have a lunchbox. We're trying to be a little bit more of a blue collar team. We're just going to work, putting in the work, getting it done. Like we also really want people to believe in the process and like understand that we can be great if we just kind of day in, day out put the work in. And it's really paid off. Like when Coach Rubin got here, I think the women were like 11th in the conference. And now we're second, 8 points out of first, it's just like huge progress. And I think that both for cross country and track has been moving in the same direction in a way that's really exciting.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes? And as head coach, what do you look at in those prospective student athletes?
Yeah, I mean, similar to recruiting for the Ivy League, we have a very specific set of academic requirements that student athletes have to meet. So, I mean, it's like we're test optional, but if you have a test score, they're looking for the 90th percentile. We're looking for mostly A's, no C's. It can be pretty narrow what academic constraints we're working with. So, that's obviously the first consideration because I want to make sure that we're not wasting anyone's time, that we're finding the right fit. But then beyond that, like what I look for is someone who loves competing. So I want someone who's like super excited about the process of kind of iterating, what's going to make them better and just like helping them grow as a competitor, because there's a lot of people that like running. Running is an awesome hobby. Like it's something that like it's great mental health support. It's just a great part of like a healthy lifestyle for a lot of people. But at this level, I want people who are like really bought into racing and getting better and challenging themselves and being okay with failure. And something I'm also kind of leaning into this year with recruiting is like folks who want to hear feedback, folks who are like appreciate the chance to hear how they can improve. And, with when that's given in love, I think that, developing resilience and learning how to fail, like those are the most valuable things that college athletics give you. And so I want folks who are really bought into that process of like learning how to fail with grace, realizing that their worth is not wrapped up in their performance, but like seeing it as a way to fortify themselves for their future careers and for being like great people in the future as well.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that uniform for the first time versus your seniors putting it on for the last time?
It's crazy how much development happens. Like, I mean, it's funny when people see themselves as a freshman, like when they look back as a senior, you can just see how much they've grown physically, but also you can in the confidence that they carry. Like it's so satisfying to see people like really growing into themselves as people. And one of the great team traditions that we have that predates even when I was here is that we do senior speeches at the banquet every year. And so it's been really awesome to kind of hear the seniors each year reflect back on how much they've grown and how much they've changed and like how their perspective about the sport has changed. And I think it's really helpful for the first years to get to see like, okay, there's a lot of development that happens not just as an athlete, but also as a person. And so that's an awesome tradition that I want to continue as well.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those athletes go on to the semi-pro or even the national team route?
Yeah, I mean, for Division 3, obviously, like there's less people who think that they're in the sport to become a pro or to become an Olympian. Like a lot of times, it's almost the opposite. Like people don't realize how much potential they have in the sport. They don't realize that they actually probably could run post-collegiately if that was something they were passionate about. Maybe not professionally necessarily, but like, if they wanted to become a marathoner, if they wanted to do what I did, which was pacing pro races. Like there's a lot of opportunities to continue on in the sport afterwards. So I think like for the level that I'm coaching at, it's like helping them understand what those opportunities are. And then also for someone who does aspire to, you know, make it onto a USA team or something like that, there are so many great programs like the U20 nationals that a lot of folks, who come maybe from more rural environments or like a program that's not as well developed wouldn't necessarily know about. And so those are some of the people that I'm working with too. Like maybe they just haven't developed to their potential as an athlete, but they actually do, once they have more training partners and a more consistent college training, like they might be able to actually, compete at that level. And we had that last year or 2 years ago. One of my student athletes at Brown qualified for the U20 championships out in Eugene. And she ended up placing second and then representing the US at the Pan Am U20s, which was really awesome. And she did a great job. She broke 17 in the 5K for the first time. And, all of it was super unexpected. She had come into college with a broken leg from a unfortunate spike ball accident. But she had no idea what she was capable of. So it was really exciting to kind of help her understand that if you give yourself a chance and you put yourself in the right situations, you never know what could happen.
What are some of your future plans for the cross country program moving forward?
I mean, our biggest goal right now is just to continue to grow as a group and continue to get better and kind of hone in on what is going to be our differentiator to like make us a program that's consistently on the podium, a powerhouse Division 3 program. So, we have a lot of plans. We want to put ourselves in a position where we could win a national title at some point, but you don't just like wish for that and then it happens. You have to kind of build yourself into that. You have to mentally and physically prepare yourself for competition at that level. And so I think like over the next few years, that's our goal is to continue recruiting, to find people that are good, fits for me as a coach, but also fits for the culture that the team has already really developed, which is an inclusive one. It's a excited, it's a passionate, it's a well-rounded one. So our big goal is to just kind of continue to be true to ourselves and see how high we can get, still keeping those core tenets close to heart. But, you know, I think the team sees the vision. It's like the actual work of executing it that takes a couple years, but I think people are bought into.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college track and field?
Mm. I think the biggest thing is just like take time to rest and let your body recover. Make sure that you're getting enough fuel for your body. Make sure that you're, telling the trainer if something hurts, because even though you're only 18 years old, injuries have a way of creeping in, and the biggest thing that you can do to protect your long-term health and success is to take care of your body right away, right now. And so biggest thing is just like making sure to ask for help if you need it, making sure to take a rest day if your coach tells you, like those things. I think a lot of people, men, women, struggle with like learning how to take a step back because they want to go, they want to go, they want to go, but a lot of growth happens during rest periods.
What advice would you give those juniors transitioning into being seniors and leading the program?
Mm. That's a big one, and that's something that I think our team is like learning a lot more about. We had a very strong group of upperclassmen this year, and it's made a huge difference. Like on the women's side, we didn't lose anybody from the class that had been recruited through the seniors, which is just like kind of unheard of and makes a huge difference. So I think like helping instill in them the confidence that like this is really hard and you've done it, like you're doing it, and helping them understand how much the younger folks look up to them. Um, I think it's like very satisfying for them to realize like, oh, okay, I don't necessarily have to be the fastest person on this track to have a huge impact on the people around me. And I try to talk to them about that and help them understand that kind of organically as well. And I feel really glad that our team has really started to take steps towards having super strong leadership, and just having like that presence of upperclassmen who have a little more perspective and, have been through the breakups and getting their first, C on a test and like all of those things and helping the younger people be like, it's going to be okay. Like this is a journey. There's going to be a lot of failure. There's going to be a lot of setbacks, but you're going to do it. So,
What advice would you give those athletes that have aspirations of competing on the Olympic stage?
yeah, I mean, biggest thing for me is like, I think the student athletes, like high school kids, um, going into young college student athletes need to surround themselves with people who are going to support them in their goals and their dreams. So like, you could go to Florida and get protein shakes made for you and have a lazy river for the athletes and have a awesome, track that's just like and best of the best coaches. But if you're not happy as a person or you're not connecting with your coach or your teammates, like that's not going to do it. Like what it takes at the next level is just grit and a little bit of stubbornness and a lot of support and a lot of like acceptance of yourself as a person. So it's like some of those softer things that, you can have all the resources in the world, but that's not what's going to get you there. The thing that's going to get you there is surrounding yourself with good people, who want the best for you and who are going to help you grow as a person and as an athlete. And just enough enough grit and willingness to hurt. Like that's what this sport takes. And then of course the ability to rest, the ability to pull back when you need to, and the ability to take care of your body, take your sleep seriously, take your fueling seriously, like make sure that you are setting yourself up to be someone who's able to participate and love this sport for, the next couple decades, not just the next couple years.
What advice would you give those athletes looking to get into college coaching after their collegiate time?
College coaching is really hard, but I guess my advice would be like, you can do it if you want to do it. Like, that's something I wish that I had heard a little bit more of is like, you don't have to naturally be the best coach right away to eventually be someone who's going to succeed in this. Like, I didn't just develop the confidence that like I can do this without, just throwing myself into it and having that experience. So I think like just, being humble, being willing to make mistakes, being willing to admit those mistakes, but then also having some confidence in your ability and what you have to offer. And also just willingness to work for very low pay for a while and kind of get through the tough times in order to get to the positions that you eventually want to be in. It's not easy. I worked for free, like literally for free for 3.5 years. And now, I have a job that I love. I feel like I'm, financially in a place where I can support this for a long time, which is awesome, but it was hard. I was a janitor of a church. I was bartering for rent just to like I literally like it was crazy. Like I was living on less than $20,000 a year, just based on like other jobs that I was working. So you can do it. You just have to like have kind of a undying faith in yourself and that you're going to learn, you're going to grow, and you're going to become the type of coach that you want to be. It's not like something that's innate that you can't develop.
What advice would you give those future head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is like, I think especially young coaches, especially women, are not necessarily naturally confident that they're able to be a head coach and to build a program. And I think the best thing you can do is take some time to like learn from other people who have done it before and learn what works for you, what doesn't work for you, um, like what you would want to emulate and what you would want to avoid doing as a head coach. So create spaces where you are, surrounded by people who have done a great job with that. But then beyond that, you have to find what's going to work for you because, I had the opportunity of working with Coach Holloway, who's one of the best coaches in the entire world. But his style isn't going to work for me at Amherst. So I had to learn from him what I could learn from him and then also kind of develop my own style. So I think just like surrounding yourself with good people, having mentors who are in different sports, at different schools so that you can kind of be a little interdisciplinary in the way that you're approaching it, but kind of be a student of the sport and surround yourself with people who are going to help you start to learn what your personal style is.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the program app?
Oh yeah, you can follow my coaching account, Amherst Coach HCD, or no, Amherst Coach CD, I think, on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. So that's probably the best thing. And then also just Amherst Track and Field, and cross country. We have some like pretty good personality. We try to like make some little memes and some, funny videos and stuff. So definitely follow along with our program on social media and feel free to reach out anytime, especially like if you're a young coach looking for some moral support. It gets really hard, but there's a lot of people who were there to listen to me when I was struggling and to support me. So I would love to give back in that way.
Thank you again, Coach Hannah Chappell-Dick, for your interview and best luck in your future at Amherst as the head track and field and cross country coach.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Hannah, for your interview and best luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.